Playoff time, playoff time. It's playoff time. Mitchell Lee, Tommy Grant, Nick Izzo. This is the weekly recess. We are the Jersey Nerds. How the hell are you? It's playoff time.
I'm excited. I'm still a little pissed off that the Dolphins couldn't pull off a fucking win against the Bills, but I'm excited. They're still in it. That's all I got to say at the moment because
That's all you got?
That's all I got. I'm
After
waiting to see
Tua
if they can.
played like buns against the Bills.
Like I said, I'm very upset with how they played. They definitely could have done a lot better. But now we have
Could be a Jaguars fan.
we
It
have
could
an
be
away
worse.
game against the Chiefs to worry about now. So that's my focus: is how the hell we're going to pull off that win.
All right. Well, spoiler alert, you're not. I don't think that's going to happen with an injured Mostert and injured Waddle, and you're going into Arrowhead, and it's going to be
Do
like
we
negative
see any
5
chance of
degrees wind
Mostert
chill.
actually making an appearance, or we think is he ruled out?
No, I think he'll play. I just think it'll be more Achane, which I don't have a problem with.
Look,
But
Miami has an unlimited amount of offensive weapons at the moment. Achane really stepped up this game to the point that the fucking Bills were just targeting him left and right because they knew he was running every time. But between Hill, Achane, Mossert, and Waddle, we got a solid offensive line. But I don't think it's enough.
It comes back to me to Tua, and I just don't trust him on the road in these situations. But even if I take that out, even if I say, hey, even if I decide to put on my stupid face for a second and say, you know what, I trust Tua. I think Tua is going to make good, smart choices. And yeah, you're missing Jalen Phillips, you're missing Bradley Chubb, and those are just two edge rushers that the Dolphins absolutely need. We saw what happened when you get pressure on Mahomes, the Raiders were able to pressure him all night long because that offensive line is vulnerable, and I just don't think the Dolphins are going to be able to take advantage of it. It's a bad matchup for Miami, which is a shame because I think that if they were able to win against Buffalo, get the 2 seed, you could have maybe seen them go on a I don't think they would have gotten to the Super Bowl, but they could have made the AFC Championship game.
Well, the other thing is if they had won this week against Buffalo, I believe the matchup for the first round would have been against a Buffalo again.
That's right. Never mind. I think they would have lost to Buffalo again.
I feel like Buffalo would have won that round.
Yeah, never mind. They were screwed from the jump.
Yeah, which is why I'm kind of happy they lost. That way they can go up against a different team.
You're either losing in the cold or losing in the cold.
Oh, we'll see what happens.
Or I guess you're not losing in the cold against Buffalo. You're hosting Buffalo, but Miami doesn't really have a home field advantage.
No.
Buffalo has a distinct home field advantage. Kansas City has a home field advantage. Miami, not so much.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to this weekend's game, but I'm hopeful that they'll pull something out of their ass and make something happen. But with Hill looking iffy every now and then, because there's a couple plays in the Buffalo game where you definitely saw him limping and he's fighting it, but that and Mosser, it's just between the two of them being questionable. I don't know. I don't see things going well for them, especially in the cold, because we all know how well the cold affects muscles and your ability to actually run.
What's your matchup you're looking forward to most this week?
My matchup that I'm looking forward to the most? Ooh.
Because I've got mine if you need some time to think about it.
I probably do need a little bit of time to think about it.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into.
I will jump in
I'm between two games, but I'll have that in about like 5 minutes.
To give Nick another minute to think. For me, because I know the Dolphins are probably going to lose, so the game I'm excited to watch is the Steelers versus the Bills, because I feel like that's going to be a scrappy shit show of a game that's going to be fun to watch.
All right, I'm literally going on. I gave my fiance, I'm like, all right, we can go do tour wedding venues at 2:00 on Sunday, and I was really hoping that there wouldn't be a great game on. And when I saw it with Steelers Bills, I'm like, oh, thank God. I do not want to watch the Pittsburgh Steelers play playoff football under any
No.
circumstances. No, I don't want to see
Well,
Mason
you're a
Rudolph.
much
I
more
don't want to
intense
watch it.
football fan than I am. I'm not a very intense football fan. I enjoy watching the Dolphins games. I enjoy watching Bills games because I think they're somewhat fun to watch. But no other teams I religiously follow and care about if they win or lose. So it's
I'll
just
tell you. I'll tell you what I'm really looking forward to, and that's the Rams and the Lions.
that
Matt Stafford making
that
his
is going to be a fun game
return
too.
to Detroit. Jared Goff going against the team that dumped him. And these are just two teams that the Lions play very well-rounded offensive football. They can throw the ball all over the yard. They can run the ball on you. The Rams are red hot right now, and if you don't know Kyron Williams, you're going to find out. Because I think that the Rams are going to be able to move the ball, whether it's with Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua, Cooper Cup. I think Stafford has a big game. I'm rooting for the Lions so hard because this is their first home playoff game at Ford Field ever. And as a fan of a long suffering franchise that wants to see my team succeed and have a home playoff game, I'm so happy for Lions fans that they're going to be able to experience that. However, I think it's going to be an L. I think the Rams are going to come in there and they're going to keep it going. McVay has proven that he can make things happen in the playoffs. He's a proven winner at this time of the year with Stafford, with Cup, with Aaron Donald, and I don't think the Rams are going to go on some stupendous run, but I think they go to Detroit and they get the job done. But I think this is going to be like a 38-34 type game.
Well,
Yes,
we'll see
Nick.
what happens.
Yes. Looking at the games again, and you pretty much mentioned one of the games that I was going back and forth between because I think the quarterback story is just too good not to enjoy it, especially if you call yourself a football fan. I mean, when was I really can't think offhand, but when was the last time you saw the two quarterbacks that were traded for each other face each other in a playoff matchup like this?
The only time I can think of is I know that the Broncos played the Colts when they had, and it wasn't a direct trade, but it
Right.
kind of was. The Broncos had Peyton Manning, who the Colts got rid of to take Andrew Luck,
Hmm.
and Andrew Luck and the Colts won that game in Denver. So
Yeah.
that's the closest thing I can think of.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't even think of that. So that's a great example. But yeah. Besides that, I really can't think of one right now. If there are any others, then kudos to any listeners who are that knowledgeable. But yeah, I think the story there is just too good not to enjoy it. And then I gotta say, I think the other game we're really excited for is the Niners against the bye week. I'm really excited to see what the bye week is going to come in store
What?
against the run game. No, I'm just kidding. Um, the Packers and the Cowboys. I really would love to see the Cowboys lose to Jordan Love
They're not going
and
to. Although
just
Jordan Love looks
watch.
great right now.
I would love to feed off of the tears of Cowboys fans. It's just
Wouldn't
it's
we
just
all?
beautiful. It's just
I
one of the
I
most
don't
beautiful
run
things
into
I think
Cowboys
that I enjoy.
fans the same way that you guys do. And I don't think I've ever been more fascinated about the Cowboys in the playoffs because if I had an MVP vote, if they gave me an MVP vote, it would go to Dak Prescott. I think that Dak Prescott has played the best quarterback in the NFL, and this MVP has kind of become the quarterback award. I'd give it to Dak. And I think that he's going to carve up Green Bay's defense, and Jordan Love's going to have a bit of a rough game. He'll be fine. He had a fantastic year, played great, but the playoffs are a different animal, and I can't wait to see how that goes. Also, Browns and Texans is interesting because Joe Flacco only been the quarterback for about 4 or 5 games, and everyone wants this kind of like Stafford and the Lions, Deshaun Watson versus the Texans. Well, Deshaun Watson's not playing. Joe Flacco's playing. And you got a rookie quarterback who just basically won a playoff game last week playing his balls off against the Colts and CJ Stroud to get to this spot to win the division. Can the rookie, because rookies in the playoffs, rookie quarterbacks in the playoffs have a checkered past. It's not always sunshine and rainbows for rookie quarterbacks in the playoffs, but CJ Stroud going up against this Browns defense has the potential to be disastrous or an opportunity for CJ Stroud to really put it on the table. Like, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere for a decade and a half.
Yeah, I'm not really quite sure what the outcome of that game is going to be. I think the Browns will probably end up winning this round. They've kind of been the surprising team for me. I never really thought much of the Cleveland Browns, but again, I don't really know too much about these teams to really give a good opinion either way. But I think the Browns will end up winning this one.
Browns have a strong defense. They are just loaded on defense, and the Texans, I props to them for getting here, and they are
Yeah,
set up very well for the future. But I just think that the Browns defense is going to be too much.
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, even though the Browns did get pretty much trampled this past week by the Bengals, but
And
aside,
they had their starters out. They weren't really
yeah,
they were locked into the 5 seed. They had nothing to play for. And then the game that we haven't talked about yet is Eagles Buccaneers, and that's probably because both teams feel like they kind of backed into the playoffs.
yeah,
Eagles have looked horrific the last few weeks, and Tampa didn't have any offense against the Saints. And to all 4 of you who watched them play the Panthers,
ooh,
they could not put points on the board in that
that
game.
was a very rough game to watch. I only watched the first half of that game. It just
They had
there was nothing
everything to
going
play
on.
for. They had everything to
Yeah,
play
that
for,
game
and
was
they
bad.
won 9-0. They scored 9
Yeah,
points. They have not been able to score offensively, and the Eagles have had a lot of trouble as well. So both teams just kind of feel like, yeah, we're in the playoffs, but
I don't even think I want to
we're
watch that game either. I feel like the Eagles Buccaneers game is just gonna be a very sloppy game to watch.
it probably will be. Yeah, you're right
Yeah,
on that. It's probably going to be a rough game to watch, and whoever wins this game is probably going to have a rough go the next week.
Yeah,
But I think the Eagles win because of Jalen Hurts' ability to just make plays. They have more playmakers than Tampa does, and I I just have a little bit more faith in them and that offensive line than I do Tampa's. That's all. I don't like any of their prospects long term, and I think if the Eagles, I think if the Saints were the team that were the NFC South champion and the 4 seed, I'd pick the Saints to win over the Eagles. But I can't pick Tampa.
yeah, yeah. I don't see Tampa winning that one. Espe- Especially with how they play against the fucking Panthers, who are just the shitter of this season. It's just if you can't pull off a strong win against that team, you're not looking good. And that's kind of why I'm excited about the Steelers Bills game out of majority of the games because I feel like they're kind of both oddball teams where they're not bad teams, but they're not great teams, and I think they'll have a good fight against each other. Whereas the other games are going to be a little more. I think we'll have a better idea of who's going to win before the game even starts. Like Dolphins Chiefs, as much as I want my Dolphins to win, it's pretty clear the Chiefs are going to win that one. Eagles Buccaneers, pretty clear the Eagles are probably going to win that one. The Rams and Lions are that's probably the closest matchup I think of all the games though. like Mitchell said. I think that's going to be the game to watch this weekend.
The thing that excites me the most about playoffs is it feels completely different than the regular season because it is completely different than the regular season. But the thing that I like the
The stakes are
most,
so much higher.
the stakes are so much higher, but it separates a guy like Eli Manning, who hasn't won any MVPs, hasn't made any All Pro teams, isn't setting a bunch of regular season passing records or anything, and it can elevate him so much higher if he plays on a elite level, a clutch level in games like this. It can take someone like that who probably wouldn't be a Hall of Famer and
Yep.
turn him into someone who's probably going to be in Canton.
Yeah, because
So,
everybody's willing to take a lot more risk.
so let me ask the question. What quarterback has the most to gain legacy-wise from a Super Bowl championship this year?
Jared Goff.
And please explain. That's an interesting answer.
I think that just is the first that like just popped into the front of my brain, and I think if he were to somehow, some way, through the miracle of life, bring the Lions to the Super Bowl and win, I think he would just be praised as a hero of his people. Honestly, I mean, it's
A
just
hero
like
of his people.
a hero of his people. That's right, a hero of his people. Whatever that means, he would be a hero because
A
he would just
hero of his
bring
people.
a
All right.
championship to Detroit, to which they would have never have thought they would see. And I think that would just be the story of the century.
Tommy?
That's right, of the century.
Of this,
I,
a hero to his people.
I don't know how to
And the
follow
story
up
of the
on.
century.
That's
I don't
right.
know how to follow up that comment.
You don't even know how
I
to follow up on that.
and again, as being
Bigger than
the
9/11, Jared Goff won a Super Bowl with the Rams.
as being the sports
Bigger
dummy
than
of the
COVID.
group, I don't know all the quarterbacks by heart and how all their backstories and their tales to be told, as Nick would probably put it. But I'm gonna be I agree with Jared Goff that would be the Lions going to the Super Bowl and winning would be a huge deal. But I'm gonna be biased against my team too. Is if Tua manages to pull off even just a Super Bowl appearance, not even a win. Like I don't even know when
The
was the last
question was
time.
Super Bowl win, Tommy.
I know, but I'm if they can pull off another Super Bowl win, that'd be fantastic because I don't even know when the
Another.
last time. Well,
1972 or 73.
yeah, that's my
The,
point.
the
If
last
we
time the Dolphins, fun fact, the last time the Dolphins won a playoff game, it was the very first playoff game I ever watched back in the year 2000. It's been
well,
24 years or 23 years since.
my point stands as that the Dolphins have not had any sort of Super Bowl success in the last few decades. If Tua, with how hot the Miami Dolphins team has been this season, and I think they definitely kind of revitalized the franchise, and everybody's kind of excited about the Dolphins now, which was never the case. Even most Dolphins fans just kind of accepted we aren't a great team. Whereas if they can pull off a Super Bowl win this year, that would be huge. I mean, that would lock in all of the offensive players would definitely be looked at a lot more. I mean, Achane, Mossert, Hill, they've had phenomenal seasons this year. I mean, they've broken all sorts of records. They've been pretty much top ranked in the NFL with all, passing and rushing yards for the season. So I mean, Miami's been great. So I think if Tua was able to actually bring it to the big picture and actually get a Super Bowl win, I don't know.
You guys are both dead wrong. Okay,
Of
there are
course we are.
two guys that stand
How did I
ahead of
know you were going
everyone
to
else.
say that?
Two guys that stand ahead of
This was
everyone
an
else.
opinion question.
Yes, but you can have a wrong opinion. It'd be like if I asked you what was the best
Only in
movie of
Mitchell's eyes.
2023.
Mitchell is the only one that speaks the truth here.
If I said what was the best movie of 2023 and you said Aquaman 2, I'd be like, well, that's just a wrong opinion. That's just
Well,
not
for that,
not
you'd have
true.
to listen to the Press Play Action podcast.
There you go. Cross promotion, baby. You knew what I
There we
was going
go.
for. All right. So there are two that stand above everyone else. I'll start with Josh Allen. If he's able to win a Super Bowl in Buffalo, it would put all of the Josh Allen is overrated talk to bed, and it would put him in the conversation of being up there with guys like a Ben Roethlisberger or an Eli Manning, and you could really start to have those Josh Allen Hall of Fame conversations. I don't know if I'm quite there just yet, but it gets to the point where it'd be hard almost for him to not make the Hall of Fame with the level of success he's had so far this decade. You stack a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP on top of that, going to be tough to avoid, especially after he just led the NFL in touchdowns this season. But the number one guy, and I don't even think it's remotely close, it's Lamar Jackson. I think that if Lamar Jackson, he's going to win his second MVP. Wouldn't get my vote. My vote would go to Dak Prescott, but Lamar is going to win it. And I'm not even mad about that. Lamar would be my second place. Uh, Lamar's going to get his second MVP. And if he wins the Super Bowl this year, it would be gigantic for a number of reasons. Because one, it would put to bed, it should have been put to bed by him winning MVP and being successful and people just watching the damn sport of football. But the whole, like, I want my quarterback to be quarterbacky, I want my quarterback to play quarterback a certain type of way, it would completely put that to bed if Lamar Jackson was the face and the reason why the Baltimore Ravens won the Super Bowl. It would also cement him. You could start carving the bust now. If he wins the Super Bowl, he's in the Hall of Fame. I think that winning MVP 2 times puts you in there automatically. But if you win the Super Bowl, you might as well start doing it now. And it's even more important to me because if he does not win, then he starts getting called the James Harden, the Chris Paul of the NFL. Because, and I did a weird little experiment the other day. I went back to 1970 in the NFL, and I looked
How'd
at
you do
all the
that? Oh,
teams. I went to all the teams with the top record in the league that year. And if there were if there were like 2 or 3 teams tied for the best record, I went ahead and I took the team with the best point differential. And I just had the best team from that year. And kind of just appointed it every year up until this season. And there are only 2 quarterbacks that were quarterbacks for those teams that had the best team that year, or the team with the best record, that did not win the Super Bowl multiple times. And those 2 quarterbacks are Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers. Peyton Manning won 2 rings, one with the Colts, one with the Broncos. He had the best team twice with the Colts and twice with the Broncos. So he's missing a ring for both of those teams, if you're following me. But he has 2 rings. And he had a ring with the Colts. Aaron Rodgers had a ring before the Packers ever had the best team. If Lamar Jackson was to not win this season, he would join that list without a ring because they had the best year in 2019 as well. And he won MVP in that season. So I think there's a lot of pressure for Lamar Jackson to avoid the choke and these playoffs and avoid catching the moniker of being the guy that can't win these types of games. I think there's a lot of pressure on him for that.
And going back to Josh Allen for a second, I think if they were to win the Super Bowl, I think this would be the first Super Bowl win for the Bills, if I'm correct.
Yes, it would. And it would get
So,
past their history in the 90s of losing 4 straight Super Bowls to open up that decade.
yeah.
So it would undo a long, like you said with the Dolphins and like what you said with the Lions, it would have that history, that stink that's kind of followed around that franchise, and he'd take that off. Whereas Lamar Jackson wouldn't quite have that because they won in 2000 and they won in 2012 with Joe Flacco.
Yep.
I also think it would be interesting if the Cowboys won, which I know Nick is shooting daggers at me with his eyes right now. But if Dak Prescott won a Super Bowl for Dallas, did the thing that Tony Romo couldn't do, done the thing that Dallas has just been unable to do for years. They've been unable to get to the NFC Championship game. They just have kept falling short. If Dak, after all of the criticism that he's received the last few years, gets the team to Super Bowl and wins that thing, that's taking Dak to a whole nother level where we can start having conversations about him maybe making the Hall of Fame someday. I'm not there just yet with Dak, obviously, but it opens a door that most people thought was slammed shut. So let's go ahead and start just getting into predictions. What do we think? Who's taking this thing home? Tommy, I'll open with you.
Taking this thing home as in Super Bowl altogether.
Yes, that's what take this thing home means.
I don't know if we're talking about the wild card round, or if we're talking about
Yes, taking home the wild card round.
So
who's going to win the wild card trophy?
I don't fucking know. For Super Bowl, I want the Bills to win at this point. I don't think my Dolphins have any chance in hell of getting it to the Super Bowl round. Maybe we'll get lucky by some miracles chance, but I would like the Bills to take it. That's my prediction.
All right, Nick.
I think you guys might have seen my my bracket that I filled out a little bit ago. I went with the Baltimore Ravens. I think they are going to win over the San Francisco 49ers. I think they have the most complete team, and I think for a lot of the things that Mitchell laid out with Lamar Jackson, I think that's the reason that he is going to propel his team forward, and they're going to get that ring.
And as we know, Connor's obviously not here with us, but he also predicted the Ravens beating the 49ers in the Super Bowl. So Nick and Connor seem to be on the same mind track there.
Everyone has the Niners getting to the Super Bowl,
but not you.
Me. Not
you. Because you know why? Because you
have
have the right predictions. That's why.
I don't know about that. I think that will be told by time. But I do have the Ravens getting to the Super Bowl. I think that they make it. But I think that Dak and the Cowboys just find a way. I think this is the year that Dallas finally gets over the hump and gets it done. And I know, Nick, not a very big fan of that prediction. And I promise, I promise, this is not what I want to happen.
I kid.
I want either Detroit to win. I honestly wouldn't mind Buffalo winning, just because I know I'm an AFC East fan, but Tommy, I'm not talking about you right here, but 99% of Dolphins fans are just idiots, and I hate them so much. The Patriots fans are just spoiled beyond belief. Most of them aren't too bad. They save the worst stuff for baseball season, but just spoiled beyond belief. I don't mind Bills fans at all.
Would we call that the Brady effect?
Bills fans, something like that. Bills fans are passionate. Bills fans love their team. I like Bills fans. I like Josh Allen.
It's a fun team to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I'd have no problem with the Bills winning the Super Bowl. I think that this is Dallas's year. It feels like it. It feels like the year where they create turnovers in the playoffs. Dak plays well. Now, that being said, and the fact that I just said that, Jordan Love is probably going to throw for 450 yards, 5 touchdowns, and Dak Prescott's going to throw 3 interceptions as the Cowboys lose in the Mike McCarthy revenge game, 35-10. And I look like a complete doofus. So that's the risk you take with making predictions. Sometimes you'll come across like a genius, and other times you'll look like a complete idiot.
I'm sure someone at some point this weekend will be facing lots of ridicule from the rest of us, depending on how these games play out. We'll just have to see what happens.
I'll give Nick credit, I guess is the word, for taking the Packers. Having the Lions getting to the NFC Championship game was it was an interesting call that no one else had. No one else really went out on a limb like that. So Connor joined you in taking Tampa over Philly. I guess Everyone took Tampa over Philly except me. I was the only one that took Philly. Huh. That's interesting. And Nick and Connor both took the Texans to beat the Browns. So you guys both have faith in CJ Stroud to navigate that defense. And I'm the only one to take the Rams over the Lions. So it'll be a fun playoff. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be nice to not have. It looks like we're going to have a new winner. Unless Mahomes and the Chiefs figure it out, it looks like we're going to have some quarterback taking home the Lombardi for the first time. And I cannot wait to see who it is.
Yep.
So that'll wrap things up for our playoff preview episode of the Weekly Recess. Thanks for listening once again. I'm Mitchell Lee signing off for Nick Izzo, Tommy Grant, and I was going to say the dearly departed Connor Vandermark, but he's not dead. He'll be with us next week. So we'll get to hear from him and his thoughts on the wild card week of action. Thanks for tuning in, and talk to you next week.